The Romania elections.
Yes.
This is something that I mentioned when I spoke about JD Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference,
That's
because
right.
he used this as an example of illiberal democracy because the Romania elections were cancelled last year. So
Yes.
I know you wanted to talk about it. So
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah, so setting the scene, let's just remember what happened last year. So November last year, it's a kind of two-part election. So you have a first round, then some people are eliminated, then there's a second round. And in the election last year, in November last year, the kind of quite odd candidate, I would say. I mean, that's not a reason to exclude somebody from an election, but he is a bit odd. We'll talk about that in a minute. But his name is Georgescu, Malyn Georgescu. He kind of won fairly convincingly the first round. And he is a bit odd. So he's a kind of Trump and Putin supporter. He's also kind of lined up behind some of the previous fascist leaders of Romania. One of his associates was found with, I think, £24 billion in gold bullion or something like that. That sounds too much, doesn't it? Maybe it's £24 weight in gold bullion. Anyway, a lot of money and grenades and...
when you say grenades, what do you mean grenades?
Like
He was
little
found
bombs.
with grenades.
Yeah, this is his associate, not him.
Yeah.
And ammunition and all kinds of things.
That's not suspicious, is it? Grenades, gold bullion. It sounds like a Bond villain.
It does sound very much like a Bond villain. Yeah. So, don't want anybody to get the idea that I think this guy is Georgescu is great, but I think the point we wanted to talk about was the democracy principle, didn't we? So the reason he was excluded from the election, or they pulled the election last year after he won this first round, was because allegedly there'd been a lot of Russian interference in the election, primarily through TikTok, which, as you know, I'm not very familiar with. But there was clearly a lot of social media traffic, and that whole momentum was definitely part of what was behind his campaign. And there was an investigation by the kind of Secret Service equivalent there, who pointed to the fact that they felt there was all this foreign interference, and that led to the election then being declared null. Now, I think they have since had another commission internally in Romania to look into whether that was right. And that's been actually quite critical. And one of the points they made is that you shouldn't base a decision to ditch an election just on the basis of information from your Secret Service, because it kind of doesn't look good, does it? But anyway, that's where we are. So that's where we got to last year. Now, they have scheduled the elections to run again. So during May, I think it's May the 4th and May the 18th, the first and second rounds of the election. And they have now decided that they will not allow Georgescu to stand in the new running of the elections. They've also banned another similar. I mean, obviously the press uses the term far right all the time, don't they? And don't always feel confident using that word because people use it to mean all kinds of things, don't they?
And the problem is that overuse of that word now means that when there is an actual far right candidate, it's boy who cried wolf.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, there is another far right candidate, Diana. Right, you might have to help me with the pronunciation.
I think it's Sosoacha.
Sosoacha, thank you.
I did live in Romania for a little bit, but my Romanian isn't that great, so I think it's Sosoacha.
Yeah, it's better than mine.
Okay.
So she's kind of independent. She'd set up this SOS Romania party, so that kind of plays
SOS
on her name.
Romania,
Yeah. I know she has now also been ruled as not being able to stand in the election.
Yeah.
Again, with all kinds of allegations that she's being anti-democratic, perhaps some Russian links again. So it kind of feels that it's like that importance of being earnest phrase, isn't it? To lose one parent is unfortunate, but to lose two looks careless. And to ban one election candidate, definitely, that maybe looks unfortunate, but to ban two starts to look significantly undemocratic, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a real worry. It's likely that everybody seems to think that it's likely that the kind of centrist mayor, whose name is something Dan, it's likely that he will win the election. But when you've won because many of your candidates have been excluded, that doesn't start to feel like a very significant victory, does it? And I suppose the other thing to say is that it's a bit like here where you get all these, criticisms of populist parties, that often when people are criticising the populist parties, they're really criticising the population. It's the voters they've got a problem with. And in Romania, for the past, I think for the past 3 years, there's been a coalition government of, their equivalent of the leftish and rightish parties. And previously, they've kind of swapped much in the same way that we do in the UK. And I actually think that a lot of the issue there is likely to be much the same as it is here. That people are just fed up of a uni party, and they do want something different. Now, it would be nice if something better that was different was on offer, but it doesn't really seem like it is. And so I do think that perhaps their vote last year and where they might end up this year will be a bit of a howl of protest rather than necessarily a massive swell of support for some of the things that these candidates believe in.
Yeah.
But the worst thing I think you can do about that is to start attacking democracy, because that will just make everybody's conspiracy theories look worse.
Yeah.
I think some of these candidates are kind of anti-vax, anti-bottled water. Interestingly, that's not one I'd heard of. That's a new one on me. So it feels like the kind of reaction that the establishment are taking is just going to make things worse.
Yes, and you can ban one candidate, but another will come along.
Yeah.
And we've got this George Simeon. I think
Yes,
his name
that's
is,
right. Yes.
Who's said that he will put himself forward and he will drop out if there's another candidate.
Correct.
And they will sort of decide between them.
Yes.
One of the reasons you can have quite a few candidates is because it uses this 2-round voting system, which is, I think, the most common voting system on the planet. So many countries use it, like France's presidential election, where you can vote for any candidate you want in the first round, and then the top 2 go through to the second round.
Yeah.
And it means that then you've got a choice of, you sort of have to group behind the one that you want. And the winners, let's say, the candidates that would have gone through to the second round last time were this Georgescu, who's far right according to the BBC, and Elena Lasconi. It might be Lascon, I think you don't pronounce the I on the end, but who's sort of centre left or quite a centrist candidate. Romania is a really interesting country politically because I think, when you made this point of showing similarities between Romania and, plenty of other countries are kind of going through similar things.
Yeah.
The difference is the historical background to it. And Romania has this history where they had a dictator until 1989, Nicolae Ceausescu.
How are you pronouncing that?
Ceausescu.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm not sure that was a popular pronunciation in the UK.
Was it not?
Ceausescu, I think we would have said.
Ceausescu.
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe that's just Bolton. I don't know.
He was a really authoritarian leader who was executed, I think, Christmas Day 1989. And I mean, you can see his legacy in Romania. I lived in Bucharest for a while, and the heaviest building in the world is in Bucharest.
Is it?
The Palatul Parlamentului, I think it's called, the parliamentary palace. It's absolutely enormous. Only bigger in size by the Pentagon. Wow. But in terms of weight, I believe it's the heaviest in the world. And I would go on runs all the way around it, like 5K runs round this building. It's just enormous.
Why is it so heavy?
Just a lot of concrete, I think, they used. But so now Romania is in this place where it's since 1989, it's got much closer to Europe.
Yep.
Because before then it was on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And now it feels like a country with, and I remember saying this to a few people, a few locals over there, and I'm not sure if they really agreed, but it felt to me like it's a country without a clear sense of identity, because their identity's been challenged so much from what has happened historically. And now they're embedded within the EU. They've just joined the Schengen zone. And it's kind of, there's a lot of EU facing or EU orientation, but I don't feel like they've really crafted a sense of identity.
Certainly Georgescu was very anti-EU and anti-NATO as well.
Yeah, so I think the people that are susceptible to that are the ones that sort of pushing back against this idea of just our only policy is to get closer and closer to the EU.
So perhaps being a bit more believers in the nation state and sovereignty.
Yes, yeah. But of course, if the only candidate that's campaigning for that is far right, then that is the person that people will get behind.
Yeah.
And I'm no fan of far right candidates, but we need to have genuine political representation so that people's views can actually be represented by people.
Yeah, I mean, just because you wouldn't want anybody to snip that quote, Sebastian, I'm not sure I'd ever say I'm not in favour of far right candidates, but then I would maybe say, yeah, I'm not in favour of far right candidates. We need a proper democratic choice.
I think 5-10 years ago, you're right that sentence is more dangerous. But nowadays, it's like if everybody's far right according to the BBC, then it's hard to even know what terminology to use.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the Romania presidential elections.
Watch this space, I think. Yes.
4th of May, is it?
4th of May, the first round, yeah.